Welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs. My name again is Jeffrey Davis. We are in the MTP Software offices in Natick, Mass. MTP Software, the leader in CRMs for the sports industry worldwide, we'd like to say. My next guest is Laurie Israel, partner at Israel Van Kooy and Days LLC. Welcome.
Hello, nice to see you.
Hi. Tell us a little bit about the firm, but also I noticed you brought your book. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
We're a firm that deals with issues that arise in families, including family law, estate planning. A lot of my clients have passed away, so we do probates. And about 10 years ago, I wrote an article called 10 Things I Hate About Prenuptial Agreements because I was seeing a lot of...
Starts with a bad marriage. Sorry.
What happens is that there's a lot of concessions made during the process, and especially of people in first marriages, they can be really, really very upsetting to negotiate, and also they can really cause a lot of bad will in the marriage. So I wrote this article, and people, the more wealthy spouses, the less wealthy spouses, young and old, started coming seeing me, and so I became all of a sudden an expert in premarital agreements and also in postmarital agreements, which are agreements that people have during a marriage. If something is rocking their marriage, very often a financial issue, they might get into an agreement to resolve that during a marriage. So after 10 years of experience in this, I thought it was time to write a book, and I wrote a book called The Generous Prenup, How to Support Your Marriage and Avoid the Pitfalls. And one of the things I specialize in is prenups for second marriages, baby boomer prenups, prenups for people with businesses, because there's a lot of issues. I do not push prenups. I think it's good to avoid them if you can, but they tend to be really appropriate for certain second marriages and later in life marriages, and they actually can help create a peaceful marriage. But prenups very often tend to be very unfair to one of the spouses, and then that can hurt a marriage. What I aim for when I do prenups is a prenup that is fair to both sides. A lawyer can't represent two sides. There has to be another attorney on each side. But what I've found in creating them is a really good way to start is to do it by mediation. So you have both of the parties come in and talk about what their concerns are, what their goals are, and you create a term sheet, and when the parties are happy with the term sheet, then you send them to reviewing attorneys to advocate or to review it on their behalf. And that tends to be, if you're going to have a prenup, that tends to be a really good way.
Costly though too, isn't it? Especially for young people in first marriage.
Well, for young people in first marriages, most young people in first marriages probably should not have a prenup, and most don't.
But what if somebody comes with a lot more assets, family assets, than the other person?
Then a prenup is appropriate. And yes, it does cost.
So there is an economic, historical economic element that should drive that.
Yes, and lots of people now are marrying later in their 30s when they've developed quite businesses and they've developed careers, and some of them have saved a lot of money, and then it's appropriate also. But what you need to do is you need to look at the balance of what you're protecting and what you're sharing, because most marriages, in order to survive, need to have a certain level of financial sharing, and that can be controlled and regulated in a prenup if you do it very carefully and thoughtfully. One of the problems with prenups is when you have a lot of family money and the family attorney is the one that's representing the child of that family money, and that attorney really has a mixed loyalty, because if the attorney doesn't do what the parents want that attorney to do, that attorney is going to lose a very important client. So it's really important for the marrying couple to have independent attorneys that can look at their financial situation, try to draft out something that's fair, and also do it in a collaborative way. So that they both can really sign on to it and it works for the marriage. Because if you take away if you take away, if one person is left with all the money and all the control and all the income from the businesses, and the other person is at that person's mercy, that can really create a corrosive marriage. So you have to tread carefully with prenups. And that's what the book is about.
So, how did you get into doing prenups? Was that always your thing?
No, it wasn't. I started out as a tax lawyer, and then I started getting into family law. I've done estate planning for 30 years. And what happened is I wrote this article called 10 Things I Hate About Prenuptial Agreements. And it kind of went viral because I was an attorney writing it. You can still look it up. And it talks about the dynamics, and people really responded to that. People still are reading that article. Then I wrote a number of other articles. And finally the book.
Chris has just brought up your article.
And this really applies to first marriages,
Right.
this article, more than its second marriages. Prenups can be really appropriate for second marriages because what people are trying to do generally is they have assets, they sometimes have businesses, and often they have children of previous marriages. And people that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, or even 70s getting married, they have a tremendous loyalty to their kids. Most people want to leave a legacy to their kids, but they also want their new marriage to survive, and they also want to protect their new spouse out of their love for the new spouse. So that's a balancing act for later in life prenups.
You know, my original business partner was a fairly renowned family therapist and marriage counselor. And he used to say to me that in the first marriage, the majority of people lead with their heart and follow with their head. And the majority of people in second marriages lead with their head and follow with their heart. And he thought that that was a problem at times.
For the second marriage?
The second marriage, that you
Yeah.
can't lead with your head and follow
Yeah.
with your heart. Have you found that as well?
I have found people finding themselves at late 60s and 70s and really being in love and just wanting to do the right thing for each other and their kids.
So that's leading with your heart.
Yeah, that's leading with your heart.
Right,
Yeah,
right. Because love is not about your head always.
yeah, no, that's not why people get married.
Right.
Yeah,
So you found that as well.
yeah. And the problem with prenups is that the process can be so corrosive that the memories of it and then the effects of it, if the prenup is not fair to one party, just kind of linger. They really fester and they really hurt a marriage. And that's what my concern is. I don't really care about the money. I care about the marriage. And that's the kind of view I have with prenups. What will work to make this marriage thrive?
Well, I do a lot of work with family businesses. I'm a co-founder of the Family Business Association. How do you find, or what's the temperature, and how do you deal with family interference?
Oh, well, we call them the shadow parties.
The shadow parties.
Yeah, the shadow
That's what we
parties.
call Chris.
They control,
True.
yeah.
It's on my business card.
The shadow parties control their child, and then their child, who might be a grown person, is kind of between a rock and hard place because the child is leading with their heart. They love their new spouse, but they also love their parents, and so it's difficult. But one of the issues.
Do you meet with the parents when you have to? Have
No.
you ever requested
I've
that?
never requested that because if I'm representing the other party, I can't meet with them. I can only meet with the son or the daughter's attorney. If I'm mediating, I really try to work with the parties. But I do want to say one thing about business, and that is it is really important if there's a family business or if a spouse comes in with the business. It's very legitimate for that spouse to want to have control over the business and not to have that control jeopardized if there's a divorce. That's a really reasonable goal, and that can be met. But the question is, if one spouse is spending 60 hours a week in the business and the other spouse is working, taking care of kids or whatever, and also spending 100% of their efforts, to have some sort of fair shake about the results of the business so that the fruits of both their labor are shared. Because when the fruits of both the spouses are shared, that's what nourishes the marriage. It's a question of contribution. There's a chapter in my book about generosity and contribution. It's obvious that marriages thrive on generosity, but there are academics that study that, and they say, yeah, it's true. But also contribution to marriage, people make contributions in different ways. And it's when the contribution gets lopsided, one person is contributing 100%, and the other 20%.
Resentment.
Yeah, resentment happens and the marriage will probably fail.
And that is a big underminer of any marriage. There has
Yes.
to be a real contribution on both parties, and it's not always
That's right.
numerical, correct?
Yeah, it's not.
It's
yeah.
not always numerical.
No, it isn't.
Contribution comes in many different ways.
That's right. That's right.
And you don't predetermine what somebody's needs are, either on the other side.
That's right. Yeah.
Your needs may not be the needs of the other person, and usually aren't.
Yes.
So, do you have like, I normally wouldn't ask this, are you still a fan of marriage
Yes, I am.
and love?
Yes, I am.
You recommend
Yes,
it?
I do. I do recommend it, and I am married.
That's good.
So yeah, and but I
And
think
your
a
spouse is well
prenup.
trained now?
Yes, but I think a prenup is a very, very, intense step, and you have to really consider it. And if you're going to do it in a way that's really fair and equitable, and doesn't destroy the feeling that you're in a joint venture together with your spouse.
You know, we've almost run out of time. I would talk to you again if you come back about, I've had clients ask me about post-marriage nups.
Yes, I just gave a talk on it to the Mass Continuing Educational Organization yesterday, and I'll send you a PowerPoint on it.
Good.
But what happens with prenups is that prenups have to be fair and equitable when you write them, but not unconscionable when they come into effect. So at the effect part, at divorce or death, there's a very low bar. A really awful prenup for one of the spouses can be enforceable, but postnuptial agreements have to be fair at both ends.
Right. Good. I could keep asking you questions, but we've run out of time. We've been speaking with Laurie Israel, partner Israel, Van Kooy, and Days. If someone's looking for you and your book, how would they find you?
Oh, all they have to do is go to Amazon and look up Generous Prenup and my name, Laurie Israel, and they can find it. It's in a print book or an ebook. Or you can go on my author site, which is laurieisrael.com, or on my firm's website, which is a little more complicated, ivkdlaw.com.
Very nice speaking with you.
Nice speaking with you.
Great. And remind everybody, my name is Jeffrey Davis of Mage LLC and Radio Entrepreneurs. And we're going to be taking a break. We'll be right back with more stories after these short messages.